For this video, we are going to go over the pneumatics system and how to program that. So on this robot in particular, we have four different solenoid channels. So the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and import our solenoids. We'll just make a new section for it, declaring solenoids. So these solenoids are actually called double solenoids. So if you do that, another thing you can do is if you do that and tab over, it will actually automatically import it for you. That's a thing that comes in handy sometimes. So we have four different ones. One of them we have kind of like a lock pin on top that is used to hold our lifter in place after we've lifted our robot. A new double solenoid. And for this one, it needs two different channels to know what it goes into, but I don't know what they are, so we're just going to leave it blank for now, and we'll do all the separate ones. So then again, we have private double solenoid. It's going to take this part and we're going to copy and paste this a couple more times so it's there. Another one is we have a lift for our intake, so we'll call that intake lift because that makes sense. And then the other one, we have another lift for our shooter. And then we have one more that actually pushes the ball out. We'll just call that the pusher. And these are all going to be new double solenoids. Okay, so I need to find the information on where these things are at. Lock pin dealio is in slots 4 and 3. The intake lift is at 2 and 5. The shooter lift is at 1 and 6. And the pusher is at 0 and 7. So now that we have those all made, we can then go into our teleop and go ahead and do something with those. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is get the intake lift going, just because that seems easy enough. We're going to make a pretty simple toggle switch, and we're just going to throw all of these different things on the Xbox controller so it's simpler. So the first thing that we're going to do, okay, so we want to get raw button press. So this is how you kind of make a simple toggle switch. But first we got to decide on our button. So since we're going to do the intake, we are going to do that on the Y button. So if I come back here and hit the Y button, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So what this does once is normally all this code and this method is running over and over and over and over again. So what this is going to do is when it's pressed, it's only going to hit true once, and then it's going to read false until it's let go, until we let go of the button and then press it again. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to actually figure out what the orientation of this solenoid already is. So we're going to do the intake lift first. You can do this .get method, and that will get you the thing of the solenoid, or the state of the solenoid. So if you do an if intake lift.get, and then we're going to say the way that you actually use these, so it'll get you a value of type value, and it'll be either K off, K forward, or K reverse. So if it's K forward, then that means we want it to be the opposite of that, which is going to be K reverse. So we are then going to want to do intake lift.set and go ahead and do value.K reverse. And it really is just that easy. And then for the else, we know that if it's not going to be forward, it's going to be reverse because we never set it to off. So this is going to go ahead and it is going to be intake lift dot set value. You can also just do this and you can slide it over. Value.K forward. Whoops. Okay, so if it's forward, it's going to set it to reverse, and then if it isn't forward, it's going to set it to forward. So that's a pretty simple one, and this should just run the intake. So we're going to go ahead and build and deploy this. Okay, something happened. Cannot be found. Okay, so we are not connected to the RoboRio. So we're going to connect to the robot. We should be connected to the robot. Yeah, we are connected. Okay, deploy again. So build successful. Now, if we go ahead and enable it, so once we have some pressure, and then if we press our button here, that'll come up. If we press it again, it'll slowly go back down if it doesn't get stuck. Okay, so that works. Okay, so now that we have that one working, the next one would be for the shooter lift. And the way that we are going to run the shooter lift is going to be based off kind of an axis value. We have a slider on our joystick. So with the joystick, if we come back over here, the slider value, so that way if we push it forward, then we can have it up, and if we bring it back, we can have it down. So this is -1 and this is 1. So we're going to use that. We're going to use the m_stick.get raw axis, and that was axis 3. So if it's greater than 0, we want it to sit one way or the other. This is the shooter lift. Whoops. Set value.k forward. Else, so it's either going to be greater than 0 or less than 0. So we can just set this to value.k reverse. Okay. So now that we have that, we should be able to build and deploy. Okay, and then go back to the driver station. So now if I enable the robot and I push this, it switches, and I push it back the other way, it changes, and that's this right here. So it's set opposite the way I want it, so I need to flip that back in code again. A really simple way to do that is we can just do, since we had greater than before, we can just put less than, and that should fix that issue. The one last solenoid that we have is the top lock pin. So for that one, we are going to actually have it work on 2 separate ways. We're going to have start, or the back button be back and the start button be forward on the Xbox controller. So let's get the Xbox controller plugged back in. With the Xbox controller plugged back in, you can see that start is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the other one is going to be 7. So we have working with 8 and 7. So m_xbox.get raw button. So we're going to do 8. So then we're going to want to do lock pin dot set value dot k. We'll do forward because that one's supposed to be the start button, I believe. Yep. So then the other one. So this here we'd have an else if. Get raw button, and then the other one was 7. So we do the same thing here. Lockpin dot set value dot k reverse. Whoops. Okay, so that should be everything we need. So then if I deploy this, with that deployed, so if I enable it and then hit the back button, we'll have to see if it's the right one or not. Okay, so the back pushed it out. If I hit the forward button and then I push it through the hole, then it comes out. So then if I hit the back button again, it moves and it comes up. I forgot to show you how to do the middle piston cylinder pusher for the ball. So we're going to come back down here into our code, and we are going to write just another quick if-else statement, and this time we're going to run it. It's going to be the trigger on the actual stick. So if we get the raw button, we come back here to check and see what that looks like. Click it, and that's the first one, so that's number 1. So this one is going to be pretty simple. If it's pressed, then we want to set this to forward so it pushes out. Otherwise, we want it out of the way. So we can set this one to forward, and then in the else, we're just going to have it set to reverse. So that way it's out of the way and just hiding for where we need it. Value.k reverse. Okay. So now if I deploy this one last time, now something else to keep in mind is we now essentially have a fully functioning robot that can pick stuff up off the ground. It can shoot it in high goals and low goals. It can intake balls, and it can climb. For the most part, we're missing a couple of things with the climbing yet, because we haven't yet incorporated the limit switches. But other than that, it is very close. So now if we go ahead and enable the robot, you didn't see that part. So when I enabled it, it actually wasn't quite correct. So we're going to hit this here. So that essentially what this is going to do is it's going to flip it. So this is saying if the button isn't pressed, it's going to be forward. Otherwise, it's going to be reverse, because it ended up pushing it out when I wanted to pull it in. So we're just going to do that as a quick fix there. When in reality, actually, let's see, I think another way we can do it, and this is probably the better way to do it, is to switch around these channels. And that should flip it around. So that way they're actually correct. So now we just, if the button's pressed, it goes forward and reverse. So those channels were in there backwards. So we can deploy that. With that part done, we can then enable it. And if you can see that little plunger back there, when I press it, it comes in and out and pushes the ball into the wheels. So if I were to back it up a little bit, and I can lean that up, I can hit my button to spin up the motors, and then if I hit that trigger, you see how it pushes the ball into the wheels. So now we can do everything, and we can shoot the ball. It's going to go out the door, which is unfortunate. That's all I have, and thanks for watching.